kept reading all the rest. Now the table's getting clear, and the truth is pretty near. Say play, say loud, let the old smoke blow out. One look, one sign, if it's real then cross the line. This is where we tell it like it is, tell it like it is, tell it like it is. This is where we tell it.
Yee! What's up, people? Welcome back to another episode of Truth Be Told. I know that on my other platforms I covered this a little bit with the Savage guys, but I did have some remnants that I did not cover there that I want to cover here, or at least flesh out if I did cover it over there. To begin, we're first going to listen to a breakdown by Nate the lawyer, and then I'll put my 2, 5, 8 cents. I can't be that long today. School starts tomorrow over here, so I got to get out and do some last minute prep stuff for school. So it crept up really quick. So I'll be I won't take in too much of your time, but I do appreciate you for your time, as many of you deem worthy to see me. Thank you so very much. I appreciate your emphasis on giving me some clout. So let's get right into Mr. Man here and listen to what he has to say.
We have some breaking news to bring you as Karmelo Anthony has lost his bid for a new trial.
A judge said no to Karmelo Anthony's request for a new trial. Judge said no to Karmelo Anthony's request for a new trial.
Karmelo Anthony's attorneys say their fight for a new trial is not over.
All right, so Karmelo Anthony's motion for a new trial was denied. Let's talk about it. Every time you shop, check your email, create an account, for free extra months. Now, let's get back to the video.
Please.
Okay, so this Karmelo Anthony, spelled with a K, he was convicted of murder and sentenced to 35 years in prison for the stabbing death of Austin Metcalf when he stabbed him in the chest during the altercation at the track meet. We all know this. Now, when the race grifters got his case, it became a mess, right? Because, hey, we got a black kid, we got a white kid, let's just make it about race. Now, I'm going to say this. If these were 2 white kids or 2 black kids, we wouldn't even hear about this case. But because one happens to be black, one happens to be white, it's now become a race issue. Now, objectively, this was a classic self-defense case. And the facts are very clear. Austin Metcalf touched Karmelo Anthony, asking him to leave the tent. Karmelo Anthony responded to that simple touch with a stabbing. Now, in the United States, you can't stab people for touching you. You can't.
Well, I don't know about all that, Nate, because it obviously clearly happened. You can indeed stab somebody for touching you. Listen, just because you feel that somebody should push back or fight, no, knives are completely reasonable. I'm being sarcastic. I agree, sir. You can't just run off hacking, slashing folks because you feel like it.
Stab people for pushing you. That is going to get you likely a life sentence or multiple decades in prison. And that's what the Karmelo Anthony proponents want you to believe, that a simple touch on the shoulder to ask you to leave should be a death sentence. So obviously there was a trial. Every single witness said the same thing. Karmelo Anthony overreacted. Karmelo Anthony wasn't acting self-defense. Even his friends, the black people who were there, the white people who were there, all the witnesses said he was being unreasonable and he stabbed the kid for no reason. But
okay, so let's break this down. This is the first part that I wanted to tackle. Initially, there were people that were saying that it was a feasible reaction, a plausible. You can't fault him for behaving that way because he was being bullied by these 2. In fact, this had been going on for a while. It's been known that they were bullies, and Karmelo was their latest victim. And they took the opportunity while under the tent to bully and harass him and push him, jump him, beat him up, and then he stabbed. Well, then when the case came up, then the narrative switched from, well, he may not have been jumped, but they definitely have a bullying in it. And even though people don't want to admit it, they did all kinds of things to Karmelo. They don't have the right to tell him to be there. They don't have the right to tell him to be there. They don't have any rights at all. And then camera footage dropped. Then you see, you can't really see what's going on, but I'm betting you he got pushed and he tried to leave. He was distraught. Every excuse under the sun was handed to Karmelo. Every bit of it. And in fact, before they even knew Karmelo's history, people found out about Austin's history. He's a racist. He definitely hates black people. He has a history of bullying black people. He has a history of doing this, that, the other, the third. Lo and behold, information drops on Austin, and Austin has a checkered past when it comes to his demeanor, behavior, and the way he acts around certain individuals. He might be racist, might not be, but he definitely does racist stuff. And that's exactly why he got stabbed, because he put his hands on people when he shouldn't have put his hands on people. Now we're in a boat where, okay, so Karmelo had an issue. So what? He was not violent. He was just a troubled kid. It went from him being a 4.0 stand-up, absolute stellar community guy to, well. So I want to approach this from the perspective of which person, based on the people who were there and what they said, who can you see from those two individuals that were seen and their history, which one of them fulfilled their past that day? That's what I want to find out. So maybe Nate might have an insight. Let's see.
Even with that overwhelming evidence, you still have the grifters out there making this into a race issue. So with all that said, Karmelo Anthony and his legal team filed a motion for a new trial because they said that, number one, the trial was improperly closed to the public and that there was a gentleman's agreement between the prosecution and the defense that violated Karmelo's right to testify in his own defense. Now, everyone really focused in on the gentleman's agreement because that's where the fight really was. And the court had to examine the previous evidence of bad doings by Austin Metcalf, and they also had to examine the character evidence or the previous bad acts by Karmelo Anthony. Now, one thing that's shocking is that I've been watching a lot of coverage of other YouTubers who've been covering this, and what I've been seeing is that some YouTubers are only telling you the bad stuff that happened with Austin Metcalf, and then some YouTubers are only telling you the bad stuff that's happening with Karmelo Anthony.
Right.
Let me give you an example. Let's talk about the racist acts by Austin Metcalf, because he did some racist, crazy stuff.
He did. And I think I told you all this before. Okay, cool. We understood that 100%. He did it. No doubt. Here's my question. Was he racist that day towards Karmelo? Did he act like his past upon Karmelo? Was Karmelo a victim of a jumping, bullying situation because of his race by Austin Metcalf that day? Or in fact, any day prior? Was there any history? No. Was there any altercation, interaction? No. So again, if we're going to go based on the person's history, you have to take into consideration whether or not the history that they behaved like back then is what was presented on the day of the incident. I think that's a pretty fair question to ask.
An example.
Metcalf and his brother Hunter were once caught spray painting graffiti, including KKK Kill All Blacks and Heil Hitler, along with the N-word, and were sentenced to 12 months of juvenile probation. Records reveal they reportedly told authorities, "We did some dumb stuff. We did some vandalism." There are several documented instances of Austin using racial slurs in school.
So Austin Metcalf was no saint and involved in all this racist crap. But
let's ask another question here. When I hear people say racist terms, I need specifics. I do. I need specifics. What did he say? Did he say something along the lines of this snip? Did he say stuff that he would have heard dialectically somewhere? Did he say it based on a song? Did he say it directly to a black person, calling them with the hard R? What did he say? If you say it's alleged, I just want to know what he said.
But he wasn't the only one. Karmelo Anthony was also a racist.
And authorities found a note on Anthony's phone with a long list of disturbing racial tropes and slurs about blacks, whites, and Hispanics.
If you go through my text messages right now to the people I talk to, I will have the words cracker in there. I talk to a Mexican and he calls himself a certain thing. I'll repeat it. I don't care. And there's black people I talk to that we use the term too. So I don't know what that's supposed to even mean. If they're talking to each other in a certain way, you can't say that's part and parcel of his racism. The same way you can't say it's part and parcel of Austin's racism. I can't equate that. I have to go based on something more concrete, more current.
In one message thread, prosecutors say Anthony wrote, "I hate gay people."
And just so we're all on the same page, the spray painting, the KKK, I hate N-words and all that stuff, that happened when Metcalf was 10 years old. And the racist stuff from Anthony happened back in 2021 when he was about 13 years old.
There you go. So it's a substantial time frame has passed. A substantial amount of time frame has passed between the young Metcalf and the young Anthony of what they were to what they are now. Now you have to gauge whether or not that past showed up under the tent that day. That's all I need to know.
And there were more incidents for both kids revolving racism and all that stuff, even after those particular points. So these weren't one-off events for either one of these teens, right? They were effectively, one was a racist, he happened to be black. The other was a racist that happened to be white. But it's so interesting that most of the YouTube commentators who are pro-Anthony have just totally ignored the fact that Anthony was an overt racist and are only fixating on the fact that Metcalf had racist posts.
Because he's white. If the reasoning that we have here is that people look at a specific race that's the only one capable of doing something, society pushes it, man. Of course they're going to harp on the white kid. And okay, so the things he did at 10 years old, absolutely racist. Ain't nobody saying no about that. I still go back to my point. What about now? What did he say to Karmelo? What did he do to that would even remotely usher the idea of whipping out a knife and plunging it into somebody?
For instance, here's the amazing Lucas. Listen to what he says, and I want to ask you, which kid is he talking about?
And we come to find out that everything that people have been saying, the rumors, right, of him being expelled from school or suspended from school.
In 2021, Anthony told a friend he had been suspended from school for 3 days for fighting.
Of him assaulting this chick.
There are also text messages where he admits on at least 2 occasions to punching girls in the face.
Of him, of all the litany of evil that this kid has been doing, we come to find out that it's all true.
In one message thread, prosecutors say Anthony wrote, "I hate gay people." Prosecutors say Anthony repeatedly threatened to murder his girlfriend in text messages, some of them saying, "How many bullets you want coming out of your chest?" and "I'm going to get you" expletives.
So as you see, everything that he's saying about Metcalf being a bad person applies to Karmelo Anthony.
I said this again. They're cut from the same cloth on different sides of the fabric. Their youth was rife with stupid behavior. Their life before 2024 was absolutely two of the most stupid children you'll ever find. Point blank, period. However, Austin came to that point. However, Karmelo came to that point. The two of them were dumb. They did dummy stuff and they behaved dumb-like. Stupid. Both of them. Just stupid as a boxer. Dumb, 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 dumb. Okay. Now we have that out the way. Both of them stupid. Both of them raised or left alone, either way, to be stupid. Point blank. Nice. Equal grounds as of now. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
So now, why did I show you that? I think Karmelo Anthony's defense team was correct, their original defense team, in keeping this information away from the jury. Because your client, Karmelo Anthony, is being charged with stabbing somebody in anger, disproportionate. He's being charged with overreacting, stabbing someone, and causing their death. And in those messages, he's literally saying how he enjoys stabbing people. And for instance, think about this. One of the biggest issues in this case was always like, you always heard, why did he bring a knife to the track meet? Well, the reason why is this is why he bought knives everywhere. He always bought knives.
And here is where the deviation happens. There is no history of bullying between Austin and Karmelo to give reason to bring the knife. All that went out the door. That's crap. He never had a reason to have the knife. I don't know, people, so he doesn't need to have a reason. Cool. He don't need a reason to have the knife on campus. But not having a reason to have the knife or having a reason to have the knife is inconsequential to using the knife. You used it. You spoke about using it before. Look, this is not what you call self-defense in any way, shape, or form. If they had put Karmelo on the stand, he'd have been cooked. He'd have got life. Cooked. He'd have been done. It's the smartest idea the defense ever had was to never put him up there. Never. Because I guarantee you this. The prosecution would have found a way to bring up his past without saying it. They would ask questions like, do you believe that what you did was a proper response to what happened to you? Has that thought process ever crossed your mind before? I'm not saying you did. I'm just asking the question. They would have eaten him raw. So smart decision to not put him on the stand.
To school. He bought knives and guns.
And also to bringing a weapon onto a Frisco school campus, saying this about his girlfriend. She went in my bag to get my computer, and I said no. And she still went in it and grabbed it. And my gun and my knife and some other stuff fell out.
Well, that answers our question, why someone would bring a knife to a school track event. And if that was to go in front of the jury, that he brings knives and guns to school, putting everybody in danger all the time, I think he would have gotten more time. So,
yep. Wise. Now, here's the problem. I don't know if Nate's going to say this, but if you set up a new trial, you best hope that somebody be okay with leaving that stuff out. You better hope so. Because they may not be as lenient. They might be, no, we're going to go. You can talk what you want about Austin. In fact, say anything you want. Free country, free defense. Go ahead. Say what you need about Austin. Now just prove to me that day, because he didn't know Austin's past. There's no record that shows Karmelo knew Austin's past. So you're telling me then that day there would have to be some sort of a hit back based on what happened with Karmelo, with Austin back in the past that happened now that everybody knew about, and it exhibited itself that day under the tent towards Karmelo. And that in a fit of absolute rage because Austin wouldn't shut up and he kept dropping all kinds of N-words and pushing him and punching him, and he got tired. He couldn't defend it. He shot him. Stabbed him. That couldn't work. You don't have that on the wheelhouse. You don't have it. You can't make that a reasoning at all. You just can't.
Oh, again, I could be wrong, but I wanted to give everybody a follow-up to what happened on Saturday. My understanding is that the judge didn't find anything wrong with the trial that was bad enough to overturn the verdict, because it's a real high standard, and it didn't come close to that. And I know this is crazy to say. It's crazy coming out of my mouth, but just because someone is racist doesn't mean they should be murdered.
It depends on what their racism brings to fruition. I understand that just because they're racist don't mean they need to be murdered. But let's not go too far to where we say that a racist behaving racist doesn't yield a certain result depending on the level of their action. Okay.
Like, are we at that point where we're saying that? But let me just bottom line. Austin Metcalf's racist past doesn't really matter. Karmelo Anthony's racist past doesn't really matter.
No.
What matters is what happened that day.
All right. We on the same, my man, we on the same page. We on the same page. I've heard people say Oh, he was afraid of them too because they're bigger. But Karmelo is known to fight. He says he can't help but fight. So the fighting aspect of it off the table too. You can't bring fear of somebody bigger than you if you're known to throw hands. And you can't say he doesn't know how to throw hands if that's all he bragged about doing was throwing hands. If he got expelled because of fighting, that's what he did. Both of them, both Karmelo and Austin, fought. They knew how to, whether it be street level or karate, they knew how to fight. They were throwing hands. One had a extra hand in things.
Two teens who seemingly both were troubled teens were at a track meet. One teen went to another team's tent, sat down, and refused to leave.
Now, back to the bullying. If I know my bully is over at a tent, hear me out. Please hear me out. I've been bullied by this person repeatedly. That's the theory. There is zero way I'm going to take my behind and go put them without any of my friends right in the middle of the enemy's territory. That's dumb. That's dumb. That's dumb.
And being asked 15 times by all the people there. When another teen then touched him on the shoulder or grabbed him and said, "You have to leave," another teen, Karmelo Anthony, stabbed him in the heart and ran like a bitch. And people are complaining about the 35-year sentence. But in New York, we just saw where a town official shot a DoorDash driver in the back who was lost and looking for directions. He got 17 years. So Karmelo Anthony, for killing someone in essentially cold blood, got 35 years. So with all that being said, now we know that Karmelo Anthony has been denied a new trial. Now we understand how everyone's pushing the narrative. One side is hyper-focused on Metcalf's racism and essentially are ignoring Karmelo Anthony's racism. One side is upplaying the violence for Karmelo Anthony and downplaying the violence for Metcalf. This is just the way it goes. But at the end of the day, the facts are what they are. Do you agree with them or not? Don't forget, like, share, subscribe.
Here's my question. Okay. Why defend the indefensible? You know there's no way to defend the stabbing. You might defend the idea that he can retaliate, but the law clearly has a whole different standard for retaliation versus self-defense. 35 years is what he got. How they came up with that, don't know, but I'm not going to compare New York to Texas. Two completely different judicial ideas about how they approach crime. I can't do that. I would need to find a similar case in Texas, preferably the same spot that happened with Karmelo. I can't do it. Karmelo's never getting out of jail before 35 years is up. If they go to a new trial and they do not take the idea of this gentleman's agreement to put it back on the table, he's Dunsky. Because so far, based on the past information, no fight between them beforehand, no history between them beforehand, no bullying at the tent, no shoving of the type that would yield the result that did, and Karmelo was the one to bring the knife to the meat. Now, if you look at history, they can show you that he has done this before. He says he wants to lick blood off the blade after he kills somebody. You don't see that on the other side. I don't care what you say. It's not on the other side. The closest you got is kill all black people at 10 years old. I hate Mexicans, white, and all gays at 2 years old. I'm not holding that past against him. I am holding what little is left against him. And what is left? What was done that day. And people said, no fight, no abuse, no jumping, an ask to leave, a touch to leave, a stabbing. I don't know how his next, if he does get the appeal to go through, what his case is going to look like. I have a suspicion it's going to be a weak one. And I'll tell you why it'll be a weak one. It'll be a weak one because you'll have to find some brand new informational pieces to add to your old trial. Your old trial did not help your client. It simply did not. I watched it, and none of the things that you guys asked about made any sense. None. You know what you could have asked? Here's a good question you could have asked if you wanted to try and get Karmelo off. Was Karmelo in a state of mind that was so distraught over his girlfriend that anything at all could have set him off? Passion. Don't do that. You didn't do that. Do you think that 35 years could have been offered before? Could be. Could have been. Remember, they weren't there at the sentencing. I could see it. I could see him being offered it long before the trial took off. Do I know that? No, I don't know it. But I can assume. I can assume. I do understand, though, this. A denial is a good way of letting them know that the information you have probably won't help your case. If they take it to another judge and the judge says nope, then they're going to call that judge racist. And I hope the next judge they take it to is black. Like, for real, I hope the next judge they take it to is a black person with braids, male preferably. And if that judge says not enough there, what are you going to call him? What, he healed the whole situation? What are you going to do? You can't do anything, can you? Because now it's a black dude saying it. A black judge, nonetheless. Look, do I want this to be a fair? I think it was fair. Especially now that I know that the text messages and message history was out there and it wasn't brought up. It was fair. It was fair. I don't see a race bone in this particular, on either side, Karmelo or on Austin. I don't see any racism there. The only person I could possibly still point at is probably the dad, Austin's dad. But the same metric, because he used the watermelon felon, the same metric can be used against Karmelo's dad, who accused all white people of being a certain way too, which proves to me that the environment that both kids grew up in were trash. Period. Just trash environment. Trash parenting on both sides. Worst of the worst. And they yielded kids that behaved the same way. Yeah, they might call the new judge if he was black and Uncle Tom. Especially if the evidence that's presented ends up going against. Wow, man. Well, he definitely gonna be an Uncle Tom. He'll be the uncleest of the Toms. The most uncle you'll ever see. Crazy. But I do know that we are in for a long haul with this one when they do finally submit a second appeal or third, depending on how much they've been through. And if they're asking to remove the gentleman's agreement, I hope they recognize that if you do that, you have to take away it reciprocally from Austin as well as Karmelo so that neither side has a leg to stand on. You're going to have to do that. And we're in a waiting period right now. That's where we're at, waiting. We'll see where it turns out to go. We'll see. I highly doubt that it'll go very far. I don't think he'll ever get a retrial. I think there's enough information to keep him with the 35 years. And if they do anything, they might knock 5 years off if they're lucky. But I don't see that either. I don't. Sometimes you just got to say it. You just got to. It's okay. And that's what we'll continue to do here. We'll continue to say it exactly as we see it. We're going to keep telling it like it is. And at some point, you're going to have to do the same. So keep it real. Tell it like it is.
I kept reading all the rest. Now the table's getting clear, and the truth is pretty near. Say play, say loud, let the old smoke blow out. One look, one sign, if it's real then cross the line.